and the Magic Beanstalk. In a small and poor cottage, Jack lived with his mother. His father had disappeared years ago during a terrifying stormy night, and they never heard any news from him again. Since that day, their lives had been filled with poverty and hardship. The land had cracked from drought, the chickens had stopped laying eggs, and only one cow remained in the barn. Even so, the villagers still whispered about that terrible stormy night when the wind tore roof tiles from the houses and thunder roared across the sky. One day, Jack discovered an old wrinkled map inside a box in the corner of the house. The map showed a giant beanstalk, and it was said that a treasure full of gold waited at the top. Jack said to himself, "If I can reach it, we will never be hungry again." But his mother said fearfully, "Please don't go. The storms are dangerous and the road is frightening." At that moment, the door suddenly burst open, and a strange man wearing a long coat stepped inside. Rain dripped from his clothes, and he carried a small bag in his hand. The man said, "You found the map." Jack asked in surprise, "Who are you?" The man smiled and replied, "I am only a traveler." Then he stepped closer slowly and added, "This path is very dangerous, but take these beans and plant them." Jack opened the bag and found 5 shining beans inside. Jack asked, "Will they make us rich?" The man answered, "Nothing succeeds without courage and hard work, but these beans will lead you to a path that will change your life." Then the stranger disappeared into the storm. The next morning, Jack woke up hungry. There was no food left in the house, and his mother had no choice except to sell the cow. Jack took the cow and headed towards the market. Along the way, an old man with a long beard and a black cloak appeared before him. The old man said, "Give me the cow, and I will give you these magical beans." Jack looked shocked and said, "How can I trade a whole cow for a few beans?" The old man smiled and replied, "Sometimes blessings come from places we never expect." Jack hesitated for a moment, but a small hope grew inside his heart. He agreed and traded the cow for the magical beans. When he returned home and told his mother, she became furious and shouted, "What have you done, Jack? That cow was our last hope." Then she threw the beans out of the window. Jack went sadly to his room and fell asleep hungry. The next morning he heard a strange sound outside. He rushed into the garden and saw a gigantic beanstalk reaching all the way to the sky. Jack gasped in amazement. This must be the beanstalk from the map. He began climbing higher and higher until he rose above the clouds, where he discovered a huge castle floating among them. Jack walked toward the castle and knocked on the door. A giant woman opened it. She spoke softly. "What do you want, little boy?" Jack replied, "I am very hungry. I haven't eaten for days." The giant woman felt sorry for him, so she invited him inside and gave him bread and food. Suddenly the ground began to shake, and the sound of enormous footsteps echoed through the castle. The woman said fearfully, "My giant husband is back. I must hide you quickly." She hid Jack inside the oven. Moments later, the giant stormed in, shouting, "I smell a human!" The woman tried to convince him that the smell came from the food, so the giant sat down and began eating greedily. Then he pulled out a heavy bag filled with gold and started counting the golden coins until he became sleepy and finally fell asleep. Jack quietly climbed out of his hiding place, grabbed the bag of gold, and ran toward the beanstalk as fast as he could. When he finally reached home, he opened the bag in front of his mother, and the tiny cottage filled with a shining glow of gold. His mother was overjoyed, and from that day on they lived happily together and never went hungry again.